Another forgotten classic, Ingmar Bergman's 1958 Brink of Life. This may be a Bergman movie you don't know. It was made right after The Seventh Seal and Wild Strawberries, and although it isn't in the top tier, I think, of Bergman movies, this is a very good movie nonetheless. Let me argue for why and tell you why you might want to watch this coming up next. Bergman's Brink of Life is about three women in a hospital who are awaiting pregnancy to give birth to a child or who already have. Like a lot of other earlier Bergman fare, even later Bergman fare like Cries and Whispers and Autumn Sonata, Brink of Life concerns itself with particular female concerns as opposed to male concerns, and Bergman's caring for individual female characters, especially feminine health issues such here as pregnancy and postpartum, really at the forefront here, and the way that hospitals treat females, both nurses and female patients, and especially expecting mothers. We also get the insider's look into a hospital as an institution, and one thing coming up in Brink of Life I think is really great is the coldness, the sterileness, in the modern setting. It's almost anti-human to me. And the women, you really feel for them in this movie, one of whom played by Ingrid Tulin, who won awards for her portrayal here, of a woman who goes into the hospital, is bleeding, and doesn't have her baby. Her baby is born dead. She's dealing throughout this movie with the aftermath of that, along with a husband whom she doesn't love, and she's definitely having either post-labor problems or postpartum problems, hormonally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. In the room with her, after she's had this terrible tragedy, two women who are expecting mothers, and you get three different types of females in this movie sort of banded together, understanding their own situation in a setting, the hospital, and around males in particular, male doctors, who don't seem to empathize with them at all. The three females bond in this movie, and we get to see different outcomes for each of them, one of whom is a happy expecting mother who is happily married, another of whom is a young woman who's going to be a single mother but doesn't want to have the baby, basically because she's going to be a single mother, and the father of the child, I think, is already married. In other words, she's a mistress and she's not cared for by him at all. He basically rejects her in a phone conversation. So these three women band together, understanding each other, whereas the institution, the hospital, and the doctors and some of the nurses do not understand them. The movie is painful and raw, I think ahead of its time, because nowadays, much more so, caring for postpartum, feminine health issues, women going into labor, in the ways that hospitals treat women, I think, are quite different, or somewhat different, I hope, from the 1950s. This is a very painful movie to me about what it's like to be in a hospital, at least circa the late to mid 1950s, as well as to give birth and the aftermath of giving birth, as well as what it's like to be a woman in this institution. And if you've ever spent a lot of time in the hospital, if you've ever had a birth yourself or seen a number of labors, as I have because I have a few children, I think you'll sympathize, maybe even empathize with the women in this. And this, to me, this is a very heartfelt movie from Bergman, who does make a guest appearance in the movie. And whereas I think The Seventh Seal is about the soldier coming home from war and his trauma and being in the homeland and the plague, and whereas Wild Strawberries is about an older man dealing with being an old man and his memories of the past, this is, at this point in Bergman's career, I think his best movie about females. He made others such as Waiting Women a few years before this. It would come later where you get Persona and then Cries and Whispers and Autumn Sonata, and Brink of Life really is foundation for those later movies that are more praised. But I think those of you who like any of those three movies I just mentioned, you'll see some of the actresses from those movies in this movie. I think you might appreciate Brink of Life. Bergman certainly, I think, at top of his game here in mid to late 1950s as far as camera work, planning shots in succession. Sound in particular is really good here, and the actresses all give excellent performances as usual in a Bergman movie. The movie will end up making several different social statements with the three women. They all begin in the movie in a particular way, and they'll end the movie, which I won't spoil, each in different ways and each in unexpected ways. And the question of, how does civilization keep going? How do these women endure labor? How do they give birth when they become mothers? What's that like? All of these gigantic questions are packed into a 90-minute movie. I think it's a really good movie to have discussions amongst, well, people who are expecting and who have already had children. This is a movie that I think is pretty profound and powerful about its subject matter. So for all those reasons, I think this movie is quite good. I could put it in my What Makes This Movie Great series. Here it's in the Forgotten Classic series because when you look around at Bergman lists of the great Bergman movies, you don't usually see Brink of Life, so I'll put it here in my Forgotten Classics. Have you seen this movie? What do you think about it? Let us know, and please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day.